most often, if we're playing that game of like marry, fuck, kill, I would say most often marry your like leaner proteins. So like your fish, your poultry, great. Your eggs as well, awesome. And then if you fuck around, maybe like it's pork.
If you're
And then
horny and you just want to get dirty, like,
yeah.
snuggle with some bacon and sausage.
Yeah, a nice, a snack, right?
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Howdy, everyone. It's your host, Callie Siegel. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified addiction specialist, and master level trained mindfulness practitioner. I own a counseling practice in both Colorado and Illinois, and I specialize in trauma, OCD, and anxiety. If you live in either of those two states, feel free to reach out to me for a consultation and we can begin the therapeutic journey together. Now on to the good shit. Welcome to season 3 of Shit Talkin' Shrinks. Gosh, I'm so excited. I will be featuring experts in the healing space, and we're discussing a variety of mental health topics, the human experience, and society at large, while creating levity along the way. Get ready to laugh, learn a lot, and change your life for good. Hello, everyone. Another fabulous episode of Shit Talking Shrinks. And this episode I've been really excited about because of my own journey with hormones. We'll get into what our topic is. But today I want to do a formal introduction. We have Callie Exas. She's a registered dietitian, a personal trainer, a fitness expert, and does a lot of work around restoring hormones and really how to create hormonal balance and things like that. And so I was saying to her before we hit the record button, I was like, oh, we're going to talk about healing your hormones in your 30s. And she's like, whoa. So step in.
Yes. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. And yes, I do a lot with hormone function, hormonal balance, but even that is kind of a myth because our hormones are basically our essence and they are always responding to whatever shit life is throwing at us. So it's not like we're not healing them per se. We're just like supporting them and helping them respond in the correct way. Especially when you have hormone dysfunction, it's like, okay, well, and I think like balance too, like again, that myth when hormones are always dynamic and our needs are dynamic and they're always responding. So this idea that we can heal our hormones or balance our hormones when their job is to kind of like keep us safe and react in a way to keep us functioning, we need to know how to work with them more so than heal them or fix them.
Right. And so the purpose of our conversation, are we talking female hormones or let's narrow it down?
Yeah, I specialize in women's female hormones. So women with an X, female hormones.
Got it. So this might be a silly question. Maybe it's not. What are hormones?
What are hormones? Hormones are little kind of chemicals in the body that send messages to all the different systems to respond. And they basically determine a lot of our ability to thrive and show up in our lives.
And what do they actually do? Like, why do we need hormones to live?
I like to say that our hormones are our essence, and without them, we would not we would just be like machines, right? Or zombies. We wouldn't be able to respond to stimuli, right? So hormones impact our metabolic function, our energy, how we make and use energy. They regulate like our circadian rhythm. So your ability to wake up and have energy to do the things and then go to sleep and what happens during sleep. They regulate our appetite. They regulate our hunger. They regulate our fertility function. And, gosh, they're involved in like every aspect of your functioning.
I mean, based on everything you just said, it's like, yeah, we need them. They are imperative for our livelihood.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. We need them. Yes, absolutely. They're foundational to our physiology and survival.
So, what are some of the hormones that you pay close attention to as, if you're a woman or identify as a woman?
I mean, in my practice specifically, I am paying attention. I specialize in the impact of chronic stress and burnout on metabolic function as well as fertility. So I look at your estrogen, your testosterone, your progesterone levels, like your sex hormones. Um, and then I'm also looking at insulin, blood sugar balance, as well as your adrenal hormones. So your cortisol, how you're metabolizing cortisol. And then we're also looking at thyroid and gut function and hormones involved in gut function and metabolism there. So those are the main big ones that I specialize in. But there's a lot of like other nuanced hormones that interplay with all of these big guys. They're like the big players are the sex hormones and your adrenal hormones. And then you've got your appetite hormones, and then you've got your neurotransmitters, and those impact again your stress hormones. So it's complex.
Well, and I feel like I'm just quizzing you, and I don't intend that to be how it comes off. I'm just like, I'm a sponge, right? I think all of our listeners are a sponge right now because we're not taught this. Like, you go through school, you take an anatomy class, but you're not learning the intricate details of hormones and the complexities and how it aids and is an allyship to our survival. Like, it's just not known. So I feel like a baby alien. So bear with me. But when you say adrenal, what's that? Walk me through that.
Your adrenals are glands that secrete your stress hormones. So your ability to respond to stressors in your life, whether that's emotional or physical or psychological. So we process stress or stressors in our hypothalamus, right? And then our hypothalamus communicates with our adrenal glands to be like, hey, we are running from a T-Rex right now. Let's go. And so your adrenals are responsible for secreting the cortisol that you're then tell the rest of your body or your pathways what to do in response to there's a T-Rex. Do we run? Do we hide? And then it like from there, it's like, well, we need a lot of energy. Let's go. Insulin is secreted to go and pick up blood glucose to take it to your muscles to be able to run. But in this day and age, we're not really running from T-Rexes. But I do find many, many, many people feeling like they're running from T-Rexes all the time.
Yeah, like their body is in this constant protective mode where it's perceiving threat all around. And then those adrenal glands, if I'm understanding correctly, secrete hormones, cortisol, that then are intended to keep us safe. Is that accurate?
Well, it's the body trying to keep you safe, right? So like cortisol will then signal insulin to be secreted to pick up blood glucose. But also if it's in a heightened state, cortisol, if it's in a hyper state for too long, that's going to impact how your brain then speaks to your ovaries, and maybe it'll shut down fertility or it'll stop ovulatory function. It will go into like a metabolic, it has a metabolic response where maybe it's like we need to save energy because we're in a famine, or we need to release glucose into the bloodstream all the time. And then this increases our blood sugar chronically, right? And then you have a dysfunction between insulin and blood sugar balance. So it's impacting, and then it's also going to impact like how your ability to absorb and use nutrients in your gut. So because it's telling your gut what to do in the case of like running from a T-Rex. We can't really be sitting around digesting food. So this will impact gut function. And maybe you have like heightened or increased symptoms of IBS or bloating or just like digestive discomfort, things like that.
What's coming up for me as you're talking is that I can't imagine that anyone really has balanced hormones this day and age.
We are collectively imbalanced.
But how could we not be? Look at the world we live in. There's constant threat and stressors and chaos and crises and trauma and tragedy. Like, yeah, our body is honestly running from a T-Rex all the time.
I mean, and right now, I think, and from the time of COVID, collectively, yes, it's been a really dumpster fire of a time. And you do see that impacting like the health of our population, right? You have increased diabetes, you have increased thyroid dysfunction, you have increased rates of infertility, you have increased, IBS and gut dysfunction. I mean, none of it is surprising, but none of it is normal either.
Right. And it's maybe become the new norm. However, it's still not normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, from a women's health standpoint, so much of the women are carrying a lot of the backbone of like what's going on in the world, right? And trying to keep everybody nurtured and safe. And so I often see a lot of women in particular putting their needs and their priorities on the back burner. And then the impact is these increased rates of like autoimmune and thyroid dysfunction and IBS and infertility and menstrual health issues and, increased anxiety. All of these things are connected.
I think a lot of listeners' eyes are being opened here around how essential hormones are, especially for women, and how they play such a vital role in every day-to-day function for our bodies. Question I have is how would someone know or be alerted to if their hormones might be wacky? Like, what are some of the telltale signs if someone's curious?
It runs the gamut, right? But I mean, pay attention to your energy levels. Pay attention to often what I see is women coming to me when they're already suffering, but your digestive health. That's usually a first one. Your energy, if you're crashing or you hit a wall or you're having brain fog or menstrual discomfort, if your PMS is really horrible, your fertility is a sign of your vitality. So like if things are off with your period or your menstrual cycle, then that's a symptom of something maybe larger going on. Your metabolic function. If you are a person that is going all in at the gym and, feeling like you're eating perfectly and super clean, but you're not experiencing any sort of muscle gain or your workouts leave you completely depleted, you're having trouble sleeping at night. I think these are signs and symptoms that like something's off. The other thing that I think people disregard because we are taught as a society to ignore and disassociate from our hunger. But if you're waking up and not hungry until like noon or something like that, this is a sign that your metabolism is sluggish and it's not responding correctly. Having hunger is actually a very good thing. It means things are your body's working to use that energy and that you're able to respond. So, yeah.
I'll say the caveat, though, tell me your thoughts, Callie, is if you're on Mounjaro or Ozempic, you might wake up and not feel hunger until noon. I know so many people are on that drug, and so I could hear them hearing what you're saying and being like, uh-oh, but would you say those drugs affect hunger?
Yeah, absolutely. Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy. Also, if you're on any sort of like stimulant, like for ADHD or ADD, like Vyvanse or Adderall, these will impact your hunger cues because it can suppress your hunger hormones. That being said, generally for these clients, it's kind of like we got to do the labor. We still got to eat in order to have a healthy metabolism, because there are no long-term studies on these drugs, right? And for many people on like the GLP-1, like the Ozempic, they're not meant to necessarily be long-term. So if you're not doing the foundations of stabilizing your stress response, and our stress response is very much tied to our appetite response, if you come off, you're going to have a rebound effect. I do think also whether you go off it or stay on it, when you go off of it, there will be some rebound effect because it's, doing something. But if you're not working on those foundations and stabilizing everything else going on, then that rebound is going to be a lot more intense.
Right. And I didn't mean to detract from the conversation. I just know so many people are on these medications and they're not really clued into how their body would naturally operate, because obviously a medication is doing what it does.
Yeah. And it's not that I'm anti-medication. I think medication can be really helpful for a lot of people. And, I'm on medication for my own shit too. So like,
right. As am I.
Honestly, like, let's like demystify especially right now in these times, like it's okay to be on medication and to use it as support, but it's not going to be effective or as helpful if you aren't doing the foundations. And oftentimes it's like, what's the chicken before the egg, right? Like medication helps you do those foundational things, but if you don't continue and make those part of like your rituals and your habits, it's going to impact the medication's ability to be helpful to you.
I want to take a quick pause to talk about our sponsor, a company called BetterHelp. It's an online therapy platform where all the therapists are licensed and accredited professionals. It's affordable. You pay a low flat fee for therapy with your therapist, and it's convenient. Do it at your own time and at your own pace, and you can communicate with your therapist as much as you want and whenever you feel is needed. And more importantly, it's effective. Thousands of people have benefited from therapy using BetterHelp, and we're really grateful to offer all of our listeners 10% off your first month. So if you're interested in receiving therapy ASAP, click the link in our show notes and you can get started. And you get to save money. Tell me your thoughts on this, but I have found that, as having a clinical practice and not a dietitian, not a doctor, just mental health is my expertise, is that when I find a lot of emotional volatility or emotional instability, that can also be a flag or an alert to maybe hormonal stuff going on, as well as cystic acne, acne that's really coming, below the mouth, chin area. Is that something that you see too?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a sign, of, again, maybe an androgen issue. So testosterone, a blood sugar balance issue, but also related to stress flares, because stress, again, interplays with those fertility hormones, those androgens, and how you metabolize those androgens. And we can metabolize them from like a non-inflammatory way as well as a inflammatory way. You process them down two different pathways. And if you favor that more inflammatory pathway, this can result in like jawline acne. It can also be a sign of like a progesterone imbalance or a testosterone imbalance, as well as a insulin dysfunction issue. But again, stress will interplay with that.
Yeah. Are there anything else that we failed to mention in terms of red flags that there might be something hormonal going on?
Okay, so let me just like think about this. We've got sleep dysregulation, sure, acne, and facial, like maybe even facial hair loss. We've got energy crashes, mental fatigue, mental fog, increased anxiety. We've got gut dysfunction. We've got dysregulated period or really intense PMS, lack of energy and exhaustion, unexplained weight gain or weight loss. All of these can be signs of a hormonal imbalance.
You just crushed it. You just crushed it right there.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people have hormonal problems based on what you just said.
Well, it's sometimes there's dysfunction, yes, and sometimes there's seasons of life where you're just doing the best you can. I have two young kids, right? Like I have a 5-month-old and a toddler. And I think the 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 point isn't that there's a hormonal dysfunction, right? It really is about learning how to support and work with your body's physiology as well as like the priorities in your life, and your nutrition practices can really influence a lot of what's going on in terms of your hormones and your stress response. We can't control stress in the sense that shit's gonna hit the fan, right, in your life. Life is happening all the time. It's not happening, it doesn't just like, there's no perfect time where like things are magically amazing and your hormones are just like chilling, right? In this day and age, I want to say. There are constant stressors. The issue, the issue isn't that the stress necessarily. It's that our systems are not bolstered, or they're not resilient to those stressors. And so a lot of the work that I do is really around, okay, yeah, sure, we're going to have stress, but that doesn't mean that we have to put the foundations of our health and our well-being completely on the back burner. There are going to be seasons in your life where sleep is fucked, right? Like I have a toddler and a 5-month-old. My sleep isn't great.
No, it's not. I don't even have to know your situation. It's not good.
Not great. But that doesn't mean that everything else is fucked, right? It just means, okay, this one area, I need to support it and support the rest of the areas in the best way I know how. And it doesn't mean I have to be perfect either. So, okay, fine. I'm still going to wake up maybe at the same time. Maybe my workouts look a little bit different right now. Not so much high intensity. I'm not working out every day, and I don't even recommend that. But then also I'm making sure that I'm prioritizing a balanced plate and eating consistently throughout the day and shutting shit down, at least an hour before I go to bed, so that I am at least going to bed early. And if I have to get up in the middle of the night, maybe I've got some anchor sleep there. Also, therapy has taught me something. I used to get into bed and stress bomb my husband because I realized that was the first time throughout the day that I actually was able to like process whatever happened in the day. Like when I got into bed, it was the first time I actually stopped and was like, what happened today? And then I started being like, oh my God. And my husband, I would like bring up these things to my husband. He's like, why are you doing this to me right now? And I was like, well, I didn't talk to you earlier. I'm thinking about this now because it's the first time I've had a moment to like think about it. So we call them stress bombs. So I now stress bomb earlier in the day.
You release the bombs, before it's dark. Yeah, gotcha.
Instead of, I'm in bed stress bombing, I'm now, trying to stress bomb at happy hour or something.
Okay, so that segues us into, we've gotten a lot of great information, like an abundance of information to be clued into, okay, maybe I need to look at my hormones based on some of the things you shared, Callie. But what's a starting place if someone wants to balance or address their hormonal issues? Like, where do you even begin?
I say first collect the data, right? Like start getting to know if it's the fertility side of things, right? I say get really intimate and get to know your menstrual cycle. That's going to be important. it'll give you signs and clues about where you need support. So that looks like not just using like an app, but also checking your basal body temperature to see what exactly is going on, identifying when ovulation is occurring. And then from there, tracking like your luteal phase temperature to see if it's consistent and in higher. So that's a whole other discussion, basal body temping, but that can clue you into some really interesting patterns around your body. And then also, I would go and get some lab work done, go to the doctor. I know a lot of people who are scared to go to the doctor because it's like facing the music, but it doesn't have to come with judgment. So like use that appointment as a starting off point so that you can know where you need to support your body. We don't know what we don't know, right? So we got to really like face the facts. Get lab work, start tracking your signs, symptoms, like even if it's digestion, when is it happening? Is it all foods or like a food threshold thing? And then from there, really support your nervous system. And this, I think, is, people think about their nervous system from a mental, emotional state, and that's all well and good. But like there are very basic physiological things that impact our stress response as well. And that can be going too long without eating, not eating enough protein and fat, not balancing your blood sugar, not getting enough sleep. And so I think blood sugar balance is like the crux of a lot of hormonal function. So I always work on getting a strategy together for my clients when it comes to first and foremost their blood sugar balance. So we're talking about, eating consistently throughout the day. But again, if you're on an Ozempic or an Adderall, that might be harder for you to tune in. So what does that mean? Okay, we're setting timers, we're packing snacks, we're making sure we have a lunch break and that we're taking it. A lot of people will skip afternoon snack, but then like say they have cravings later at night. Well, or they can't get to sleep because their mind is racing. Well, if you didn't eat enough during the day, that is sending your body into a fight or flight mode. So I think it's really important to understand blood sugar balance first and foremost.
Are there certain foods that you recommend as a dietitian when it comes to hormones?
I try to really stick to an additive approach when it comes to my clients and my practice. So you're never going to hear me say like there are no foods that you should avoid, but certain foods that I think are really underutilized and underrated when it comes to hormone health are like your healthy fats. So chia seeds, flax meal, even your saturated fats. Those are the those provide the backbones of your steroid hormones. So like your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, you need saturated fat in your diet. And I think if you're a millennial, you grew up like no fat, the no fat craze, right? So fat is actually kind of essential for our hormone health and well-being. Oh, those omega-3s too. So like great for neurotransmitter synthesis in the brain, obviously. But I love a good like use olive oil, eat some fish, eat some shellfish, have some avocado. Again, those chia seeds, flax meal, great sources of unsaturated omega-3 fats. And then for proteins, I really stress, especially if you're a woman in childbearing years who has a cycle, who's menstruating, high bioavailable protein sources, and that means animal sources. So those sources are the sources that the body can most effectively and efficiently digest and absorb amino acids from. And I think it's really important that we are including those proteins in our diet, especially if you're a person who is in the midst of burnout or chronic stress states or experiencing autoimmune or PCOS, anything like that. I think animal proteins are important. And so including a serving of each at each meal is going to be really helpful for you.
Does it matter what kind of animal proteins, like are water animals versus land animals different or better?
They provide different macro and micronutrient profiles. I say a variety. So I mean, generally speaking, what I like to say is like most often, if we're playing that game of like marry, fuck, kill, I would say most often marry your like leaner proteins. So like your fish, your poultry, great. Your eggs as well, awesome. And then if you fuck around, maybe like it's pork.
If you're
And then
horny and you just want to get dirty, like,
yeah.
snuggle with some bacon and sausage.
Yeah, a nice, a snack, right? Maybe it's pork, right? And then kill, which doesn't mean never have it. For me in my practice, maybe it's like ghost, okay? But maybe you're seeing this for this 2 times a week, rarely a couple of times a month. That would be more like your red meat, and your processed meats like hot dogs, grilled red meat.
Dude, I love a good hot dog though.
I know. You know what? Then have it. It's okay. I'm not saying kill it. You don't have to. But in mindful, be mindful. Let's not make it something that we're married to, that we're having 3 times a week, right?
Right. Right. No, I think the marry, fuck, kill is a great analogy and it's playful. And now everyone knows you're into bestiality, Callie. So
um,
I'm totally
yeah.
kidding, folks. That was a joke.
Yeah, I have a funny story, but I'm not gonna tell it.
Let's keep moving and grooving. Anything else in terms of that was a starting place, right? Which is brilliant because someone needs to know where to take the first step. Let's say someone's a little bit more advanced. Is there more advanced recommendations?
Sure. I mean, there are always more advanced recommendations, but my philosophy is that the protocol should fit your life. And so it's going to be nuanced to the individual, right? Like it's got to fit your life. If you, someone who maybe doesn't have kids, is a double income person, has lots of time to go to the gym, but they're exhausted. They're having time to meal plan versus somebody who has like 2 kids, a full-time job, or a single mom. Their recommendations are going to be a lot different because it has to fit their life. I can't give that person the same protocol. It at the end of the day, maybe the goal is the same, but it depends on what they're struggling with most. So if somebody is more advanced, what I think is super important when it comes to hormone health, because it is dynamic and it is personal, it isn't about fixing the hormones. It's about developing a much deeper connection to your body and yourself and your priorities. Because if we aren't connected to our body, then we are disassociated from it. And then we can't make choices for it that are aligned with our values and how we want to show up. So for somebody who's more advanced, that might look like paying attention to your energy and your energetic boundaries and the things that are influencing your energy. That might be like, okay, we're not just talking about like eat this, not that. We're talking about division of responsibilities in the household and who's cooking versus who's washing the dishes. Are you cooking dinner every single night? Do you feel like you have time to go to the gym? Okay, you want to be able to go to the gym? Well, then that requires maybe a discussion with your partner if you have kids at home or like schedules to finagle to get you both on the same page. right? So it's kind of like that, which doesn't seem attached to nutrition, right? But it does very much influence our hormone health and our nutrition and the choices we make around our nutrition.
Absolutely. No, no, no. I mean, I think that as a therapist, our external world very much so impacts our ability to be either loving and kind and nurturing to self or the opposite of that. And all of that impacts hormones because if you're beating yourself up and you're stressed and you're a perfectionist and you're overachieving, right? That puts a lot of heaviness on our mind, body, and spirit. So I see it very interconnected.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point too. It's like the self, we can't hate our way into a body that we love, right? And that we feel connected to. And perfectionism and trying to do all the things perfectly, um, that we see that all the time in nutrition, and a lot about healing, I say it in quotes, but nourishing your hormones is about learning how to live in the gray, um, and being able to respond to what your body is trying to tell you.
Yes. And I want to end on this note that our body is communicating all the time with us. Every single moment to moment, day to day, our body is alerting us to pay attention.
Yeah, it really is, and our hormones are doing the heavy lifting on that.
Well, now I know that. I didn't know that before. Everyone, if this was helpful and you enjoyed the content and feel like there might be someone, it could be yourself or others that could benefit from this valuable episode, go ahead, share it. Alert other people to the magic of hormone. I don't want to say hormone balancing because it's hormone nourishing. I like that word.
Hormone nourishing, hormone support, that's what we're doing.
And on that note, we'll catch everyone later.